Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Press Box Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Bob Ryan. Bob recalls the relationship and legendary NBA battles between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Well, you can't talk about Bird without talking about Magic, obviously, and you brought Irvin up. You actually saw Magic Johnson and Larry Bird play, not in the Final Four. You did see that, but you saw them the year before when they were in 1978 NCAA tournament. Tell me about that.
No, it was I saw them 1-1 each. I saw them about, how many hours apart would that have been? 12, 14, about 16 hours apart. Okay. I am covering Providence in the 1978 first round in Indianapolis against Michigan State. Okay. For the Boston Globe. I am covering that. And I'm off the beat. I'm not on the Celtics beat this year. Okay. And guess what? Indiana State is home on Friday night in an NIT home game against Illinois State.
You got to go.
So I go in the company of a future colleague, Michael Madden of the Providence Journal, and someone that a name that should resonate to you, Jason Stark, the great baseball maven, now
Philadelphia.
Yeah, Athletic now, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Jason Stark, who was then also working for the Providence Journal. I drive, the three of us, to Terre Haute, to the game, and we watched Larry play. The first play of the game, I can't make this shit up, I'm telling you. Illinois State gets the tap. They go down and take a shot. Miss. Larry gets the rebound. He dribbles up the left side of the court, and somewhere around mid-court, he spies Carl Nix, who was the next best player on that team, a guard.
Good player,
yeah. Had taken off and was heading to the basket. And Larry cocked back off the dribble and threw this bullet 40-foot pass off the dribble to Nix for a layup. That was the first act I ever saw Larry Bird make. Okay. And got my attention, I must say. And he eventually wins the game on a game-winning basket, by the way.
Well, of course he does, right?
He posted up a little turnaround in the lane, and all that. So on the way back, we're tooling around, and we stopped at a convenience store on I-70, and we picked up a couple of brewskis. And I was driving, but I was sipping at a one beer, and we were drinking. See the blue lights flashing behind us. So I pull over, but before they got there, we were able to ditch the cans, out the window. And Stady comes up and says, "You boys, I was 33. I looked pretty good, I guess. And you guys, I think he said boys, going pretty fast." I said, "Oh, officer," I said, "I'm so sorry. We just came from the Indiana State game, and we were talking, and I lost, track of what I was doing, and I'm sorry, I was speeding a little bit." "Really? Who won?" I said, "Well, ISU won. Bird hit a basket to win the game." He said, "All right, you boys be careful now."
It's funny. I have my own experience with Bird, and that kind of similar that when he was coaching the Pacers, I got sent over to Indiana to interview him about something. I can't even remember. And I got a speeding ticket on the way over there. And so when I went to talk to Bird, he knew I was coming. It was arranged, and he called me over, and I went over to him, and I said, "This better be good. I got a damn speeding ticket on the way over here." Well, he laughed and laughed. He didn't know me, but that broke the ice, and we had a great interview.
I was to French Lick 4 or 5 times over, for various reasons, and always enjoyed it. But when I saw the circumstance, the period of time, his grandmother lived directly across the street from the gym, literally, and there was what happened with the Bird. There were all these brothers and a sister, and the boys would. One of them would move in periodically with grandma to help the housing crunch in the birdhouse, quite frankly. So the year he was living with grandma, he's a big sleeper, by the way. He's a major league sleeper. I don't know if he still is, but he always was. Sleep was very important to Larry. And he claimed, go back after he got out of school, classes were over, take a nap and sleep on the couch or whatever, and then get up about half hour before 7 o'clock for a 7:30 game and walk across the street. He was sleeping in his uniform and get ready to play. That's a good story. I hope it's true, but nobody's going to be able to refute it. But
hey, I love it. It's a great story. We're print it. We're going with that one.
He did in fact live across the street from the gym.
All right, Bird Magic, 1979. You covered 29 Final Fours, I believe.
Yes.
You covered the 1979 Bird Magic. Michigan
Yes.
State defeats Indiana State. That was really the game that I think college basketball just blew up after that game. It's still, I think, the highest rated.
It is the highest rated game
championship.
42 years later, and of course, it's never going to be surpassed because with the fracturing of the split of media and all the available things, and the ratings will never. Shares are never going to be what they once were. Anyway, yes, I did cover that game.
What was it like in the arena?
Well, first of all, the game stunk. You know that. It wasn't much of a game. Indiana State, Larry was hurt, and I'll get to that. And he shot 7 for 21, and he had 13 rebounds. And Magic, the better team won. Okay, right. And they didn't even have Jay Vincent. He was hurt. And Ron Vincent of the Virgin Island, he was an Islander. I know that. He had a good game. But Magic was Magic. Okay. Saturday afternoon was really good. Larry in the semis, Larry increased the growing legend. He went 16 for 19 in the semifinal game against DePaul. And then Michigan State crushed Penn. That's your last Ivy League team to go to the Final Four. And from the time the second game ended, I think that was the second game, but I'm not positive, on Saturday night until they tipped off on Monday night, which now is 9:22 Eastern. I don't know what time we were the night to 79, but maybe a little earlier, maybe not. Todd, that was the longest 2 days I ever spent in anticipation of an athletic event in my life. And I wasn't alone. There was such anticipation about Bird Magic in Salt Lake City, Utah, to be there in that city. The anticipation and the excitement and the buzz and the feel and it was too good to be true. As you know, Indiana State was undefeated, and Magic had acquired this reputation. You know what I'm saying? It was the longest wait. It was like forever. The Sunday dragged, Monday all day dragged. Let's go. We wanted that game. I've never, no pro experience has ever come close to that. This was just very, very, very special. Turned out the game was anticlimactic. Now, my version, and Larry is so honorable, he'll never admit it. He had hurt his hand early in the playoffs, in the tournament. I think I don't know. He did. He hurt his hand, his thumb. I think early in that game, I remember seeing him catch a pass and wince. And if you watch the tape of that game, of those 13 rebounds, I would say half minimum, and maybe 9 or 10, were one-hand scoops without using that other hand. And he was, if anything, a fundamentally perfectly sound player who always, in any other circumstance that I've ever seen him, would use the two hands. There was no showboat nature. There was no need. He couldn't use his left hand, and no, it wasn't a shooting hand, but he wasn't himself, right? Yeah. And he'll say, better team won, always. And we maybe won 2 or 3 out of 10 at the most. They were better. And that's probably true. But I just wish he had put up a better game, and he wishes he had put up a better game. That after
that started it really for college basketball.
Yes.
And that started it a year later. You're in the Spectrum, courtside. This rookie, Magic Johnson, once again. Now he's with the Lakers, and he puts on a performance in Game 6, filling in for injured Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He jumped center. He did everything. Tell me what it was like in the Spectrum when Magic won that first NBA title.
We've got to back up a bit. That was a Game 6. And in Games 1 through 5, the MVP unquestionably was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he gets hurt in Game 5. I don't know when he got hurt, but they lose Game 5 out there. So we're coming back for Game 6 in Philadelphia. And he's not playing. He didn't even make the trip. And so I can tell you that we in the media, all we were talking about was where we're going to go for dinner when we go back to LA for Game 7. This is a Friday night game. And we're going to, I'm serious. Where are we going back? Where are we going to go for dinner on Saturday? Because we're going back for Game 7 on Sunday. Everybody knows that. They're not beating the Lakers or the Sixers without Kareem, who had been the best player. I'm sitting behind the basket, first row. And in the first period of that game, Magic Johnson scored 5 field goals, none of which, as I recall writing, had anything to do with any of the other 4. In other words, it was just it was a virtuoso shake, a hook, a base, a reverse, a post up, a face up, this and that. It was a virtuoso, 5 fascinatingly interesting different shots en route to what it turned out to be 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, as you know, playing in a sense, as much as we can differentiate among positions, which is overrated in basketball anyway, now, forever and more. But all 5, did he jump? Yeah, he jumped. Did he guard it? He probably did guard somebody at each, guarded the center, guarded the guard, guarded the forward. He's 20 years old, 20, 20 years old. It remains among the handful. I don't have to go any farther than that. 5 best performances I have ever seen in all the years I covered the NBA. And it was it was 20 years old. So that legend was cemented that night for sure. Then, of course, they give him the MVP, which I screamed about because, no, I know that he won that game, but Kareem was the first 5 games. There was no argument. But anyway, I often have problems disputing the MVPs, like in 2010 when they
no, Bob, you have a problem with things?
When they stole it from Pau Gasol and gave it to Kobe, which is ridiculous. But anyway, that's another matter.
But that night started it all. It was Bird Magic from there on.
And they would play 31 times as well, which is great, And I was the only story I ever wrote. I wrote a couple of advertising supplements, but I ever wrote for Sports Illustrated. They honored me, tremendously by asking me to write this cover story on Bird Magic rivalry, after Larry retired, and I did, and so we researched. They were able to research a lot of stuff. I was able to research a lot of stuff. What I'm going to say is that just as digression, it's the greatest individual matchup rivalry of the last 30 years, but it ain't the best one in history, and you know what that one is.
Ollie Frazier.
It's no, I mean in basketball.
Go for it.
Wilton Russell.
Yes.
Who played 142 times, not including exhibitions.
That's insane.
That? Well, the league was smaller.
Yeah.
So instead of playing 4 or 6, they were playing 8, 10, 12 times against each other throughout the early 60s and mid 60s, and then playoffs. And they did 142 times they played. Now that's a rivalry.
But it all came together, right? You had Bird Magic, you had David Stern coming in 84.
Oh, yeah.
You had Pat Riley with the Lakers. Yep. You had the Celtics, Lakers, West Coast, East Coast.
And then Michael.
Race was in there, white
yep.
guy.
Guy. Yeah. They were Michael Thompson, who doesn't get credit for being one of the most fascinating, Clay's father, folks, you youngins. His father was a pretty good player. Wasn't a great player, but he's a damn good player, Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson referred to them as the salt and pepper of the NBA. Isn't that great? That was great. It was it was too good to be true matchup. And they both were each other's biggest fan. Both each other. And I'm so happy when I did the book with Larry, guess who we got to do the forward? Magic.
Right.
And it was so appropriate. And when Magic announced to the world that he was HIV positive, he called Larry that day. And when Larry retired, the first person outside of Boston he called, tell him it was Magic. And then, it's all for real. There's no stage phoniness. They have a bond, truly.
What was it like in the Garden when it was Lakers, Celtics, mid 80s, NBA Finals, no air conditioning in Game 4?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all,
finals.
Surprise people on the outside. And I think Larry agrees with me. As great as that was, and the stakes were the ultimate, it didn't equal the fervor when the Sixers would come in. The Sixers, and this goes back, the history as well.
Boston, Philly.
I just referred to the Wilton Russell. All right. Well, okay. So Philadelphia and Boston started hooking up. Begin in the middle 50s. No, it happened, and it all took root in. When Russell and Wilt played against each other for the first time in 1959, but finally when they had their first playoff series against each other, which was in 1962, and it went 7 games and was won on a buzzer-beating shot by Sam Jones in the 7th game. But and then they played again several times when Wilt was in San Francisco. Anyway, that team that when the Dr. J and originally was Dr. J, Darryl Dawkins, Mo Cheeks,
McGinnis,
Bob Jones, and the Boston Strangler, Andrew Toney. Those were fierce. That was a fierce rivalry. And Celtics Knicks in the early 70s I told you that was unique, and that mean I use that word very specifically because there was nothing else like it. I told you why, because it was the only NBA rivalry that I've ever encountered that felt like a college rivalry because of the balance of fandom in the, due to the fact that so many of the people in that building were rooting for the Knicks as New York kids that were going to school in Boston. But the Lakers thing, oh yeah, and it got great. Played them for 3 out of 4 years. In the finals, and it was a great drama. The 84, there were so many spectacular things that happened in 84, and then 85, Kareem gets his revenge. The first time that he had a Laker team had beaten Boston, and he won, and he had the great line after Game 6 when he wins, and he says, "I feel like Johnny Padres." Now we baseball fans knew exactly what he was talking about.
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah, 1955. He grew up. Baseball was his first love. Originally, it was also Larry's first love, by the way, originally. But and it was Michael Jordan's too, by the way. All three of them originally were baseball fans and baseball enthusiasts before they were basketball people. All three of those guys. But anyway, it was electric. It was fun.